The mop hit the polished floor with a wet slap, and Marcus Webb pushed it in long, methodical strokes across the empty corridor of Building 7. It was 21:47 hours at Naval Air Station Oceana, and the fluorescent lights hummed above him like tired insects. He'd been cleaning these halls for 3 years now, ever since he'd left the Navy, left it all behind. His daughter Lily was asleep in the break room, curled up on the couch with her stuffed rabbit because daycare closed at 6 and his shift didn't end until midnight. Nobody bothered them here. Nobody even saw him anymore. That's how Marcus preferred it. But tonight something was different. 3 voices echoed from the hangar bay adjacent to the administration wing, sharp, angry, laced with something darker. Marcus slowed his mop, water dripping in the silence between their words. He shouldn't care. He'd learned not to care. Then he heard the 4th voice, quieter, defiant, a woman's voice, and the unmistakable sound of a hand striking flesh. Marcus left the mop leaning against the wall. His boots made no sound as he moved toward the voices, muscle memory taking over, the same cautious approach he'd used in Kandahar, in Fallujah, in a dozen places he tried to forget. Through the crack in the door he saw her, a lieutenant commander by her uniform, pressed against a workbench by 3 men in civilian clothes. Contractors, maybe, or worse. Her name tag read Kestrel. Blood trickled from her split lip, but her eyes were cold fire. "You're done talking, sweetheart," one of them said, his hand moving to her collar. "You don't get to file reports about what you saw. You don't get to." Marcus didn't wait to hear the rest. He pushed through the door, and all 4 of them turned. The men saw a janitor in a faded blue uniform, middle-aged, unremarkable. They didn't see the scar tissue on his knuckles or the way he moved his weight to the balls of his feet. They didn't see the Navy Cross gathering dust in a shoebox under his bed. "Maintenance," Marcus said quietly. "Gotta clean this bay." The biggest one laughed. "Come back later, old man." Marcus looked at the woman. She was holding her ribs, breathing carefully, but she met his eyes. In that moment, something unspoken passed between them, a recognition that only people who'd seen the worst of humanity could share. "My daughter's in the next room," Marcus said, his voice steady as granite. "She's 7, and I need you 3 to leave. Now." They didn't leave. They made the mistake Marcus had been waiting for someone to make for 3 long, quiet years. They came at him. The fight lasted 42 seconds. Marcus moved like water through stone, a palm strike to the solar plexus, an elbow to the temple, a knee that connected with surgical precision. He'd spent 20 years learning how to hurt people efficiently, and he'd spent 3 years trying to forget. But the body remembers. By the time base security arrived, 2 men were unconscious. One was whimpering against the tire rack, and Marcus was standing between them and the woman, breathing hard, his knuckles bleeding. Lieutenant Commander Kestrel was on her feet, phone in hand. She'd called it in herself. When the master at arms arrived, she spoke with absolute clarity. "These men assaulted me. This man saved my life." They took statements. They photographed injuries. They led the 3 men away in flex cuffs. And then they asked Marcus for his ID. He handed over his contractor badge, watching their faces change when they scanned it, when they saw the name Marcus Webb attached to service records that made their eyes widen. "Sir," the young MA said, his voice suddenly different, "we didn't know." "Nobody does," Marcus said. "Keep it that way." He went back to his daughter, woke her gently, carried her to his decade-old sedan. She mumbled something about cartoons as he buckled her in. He didn't expect anything to come of tonight. He'd learned long ago that heroism had a short shelf life, that valor meant less than paperwork, that the system protected its own and forgot the rest. He was wrong. The next morning at 800 hours, someone knocked on his apartment door. Marcus answered in sweatpants and a faded t-shirt, Lily eating cereal at the kitchen table behind him. The man at the door wore a service dress blue uniform with shoulder boards that carried 4 stars. An admiral, Fleet Admiral Catherine Harding to be precise, though Marcus didn't know that yet. Behind her stood Lieutenant Commander Kestrel, her lips stitched, her jaw set. "Master Chief Webb," the admiral said, and Marcus felt something twist in his chest at the rank he'd given up. "May I come in?" He stood aside. Lily stared, spoon halfway to her mouth, milk dripping. The Admiral stepped into the cramped apartment, 2 bedrooms, discount furniture, walls painted builder beige, and she looked around with eyes that cataloged everything. "Daddy," Lily whispered, "is that a real Admiral?" "Yeah, baby," Marcus said, "real as they come." Admiral Harding turned to face him. "Last night, you intervened in an assault on one of my officers. Those 3 men were attempting to silence Commander Kestrel because she discovered evidence of equipment sabotage that would have resulted in casualties. Because of you, she's alive. Because of her report, we've prevented a catastrophic incident." Marcus said nothing. Lily had gone very still. "I've reviewed your record, Master Chief. Navy Cross for Valor in Ramadi, Silver Star, 3 Purple Hearts. You were one of the best SEALs in your generation, and you're cleaning floors." "I have my reasons," Marcus said. "I know your reasons." The Admiral's voice softened. "I know you left service when your wife passed, when Lily needed a parent who'd be there every night. I know you took the only job that let you keep her close. And I know that last night you risked everything, your anonymity, your safety, your daughter's security, because someone needed help." Commander Kestrel stepped forward. Her call sign was embroidered on her flight suit under her open jacket, Kestrel, a predatory bird, fierce and precise. "They were going to kill me," she said quietly. "I need you to understand that. This wasn't about intimidation. I found evidence that maintenance contractors were deliberately installing faulty components in FA-18 Super Hornets, ghost parts, counterfeit. They've been doing it for 18 months. 6 pilots have died in mechanical failures that were actually murder for profit." Marcus felt cold. "Which squadron?" "VFA 32, Kestrel said. "The Swordsman, my squadron. I lost my wingman 4 months ago, Lieutenant Rachel Vance. The investigation called it pilot error, but I pulled the maintenance logs. I found the pattern, and when I tried to report it, those men tried to make sure I couldn't." The Admiral clasped her hands behind her back. "We've arrested 12 people this morning. Federal agents are executing warrants as we speak. But Commander Kestrel tells me you need something too, Master Chief. She heard what you said before the fight started, about your daughter." Marcus glanced at Lily, who was watching with wide eyes, not understanding but feeling the weight of the moment. "I said I needed them to leave because she was in the next room," Marcus said. "I didn't want her to see violence. She's already lost enough." "No," Kestrel said gently. "Before that, when you first saw me, you whispered something. You thought I couldn't hear, but I did. You said, 'Daddy, please help her.' You weren't talking to yourself. You were talking to someone who isn't here anymore." Marcus's throat tightened. For 3 years he'd kept that memory locked away, but it came flooding back now. Lily at 4 years old, crying in a hospital waiting room, begging him to save her mother, begging God, begging anyone. He'd been overseas. He'd made it back in time to hold his wife's hand as she slipped away. And Lily had looked at him with those enormous eyes and whispered, "Daddy, please help her." He couldn't, but last night he could help someone else's daughter, someone else's mother, someone else's person who mattered. "My daughter taught me that we help people," Marcus said, his voice rough, "even when it costs us, especially then." Admiral Harding nodded slowly. "Master Chief, I'm not here to offer you your trident back. I'm not here to put you back in uniform, though God knows we'd be lucky to have you. I'm here because Commander Kestrel insisted I understand who you are. And having met you, having seen how you live and what you've sacrificed, I want to do something for you. What do you need?" Marcus looked at Lily. She was 7 years old, brilliant and brave, and she deserved more than a father who worked midnight shifts and fell asleep at parent-teacher conferences. She deserved stability, security, a future. "I need a job that lets me be her dad," Marcus said. "Not just at night. During the day, too. I need something that uses what I know but doesn't take me away from her." The Admiral smiled. Commander Kestrel is returning to active flight status. She's also been tasked with heading a new aviation safety oversight program identifying and preventing the kind of sabotage that nearly killed her. She needs someone with investigative experience, tactical instincts, and absolute integrity. Someone who understands both the military and the real world. Someone who won't back down when things get dangerous. She paused, letting the implication settle. The position comes with a GS-13 pay grade, federal benefits, and regular hours. You'd be based here at Oceana, working directly with aviation squadrons to ensure safety protocols are followed. You'd be home for dinner. You'd be at her school plays. And you'd be doing work that saves lives. Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in 3 years: hope. Lily slid off her chair and walked over, taking his hand. "Daddy, can you do it?" He looked down at her, this small, fierce person who'd survived so much loss, and then at Commander Kestrel, who stood with the bearing of someone who'd stared death down and refused to blink, and at Admiral Harding, who commanded fleets and still cared enough to visit a janitor's apartment at dawn. "Yes," Marcus said, "I can do it." The Admiral extended her hand. Marcus shook it, feeling calluses that matched his own. "Welcome back, Master Chief, not to the teams, but to the fight that matters." As they left, Kestrel paused at the door. "Thank you," she said simply, "for seeing me, for not walking away." "Ma'am," Marcus said, "I spent 20 years in the Navy learning that rank and medals don't make someone worth saving. Humanity does. You'd have done the same." She smiled and it changed her whole face. "Maybe, but I'm glad it was you." After they'd gone, Lily tugged his sleeve. "Daddy, were you a hero?" Marcus knelt down, meeting her eyes. "Baby, I just did what needed doing. Real heroes do it every day. They show up. They help. They don't quit. Your mom was a hero. That lady who was here, she's a hero. And someday, if you want, you can be one too." Lily considered this seriously. "Can heroes also eat pancakes?" Marcus laughed for the first time in months. "Heroes definitely eat pancakes. Let's go make some." As he mixed batter and Lily chattered about school, Marcus thought about the strange geometry of fate, how a moment of violence could become a doorway, how the worst night could lead to the best morning. He thought about Commander Kestrel flying again, about the pilots who'd never know he'd helped save their lives, about the quiet nobility of showing up when it mattered. He'd been a janitor yesterday. Tomorrow he'd be something new. But today, right now, he was Lily's dad, making pancakes in their small apartment, and that was the most important thing he'd ever been. Through the window, the morning sun painted the sky in shades of gold and amber, and somewhere over Virginia Beach, fighter jets carved contrails into the blue, and the world kept turning, a little safer because one man had refused to look away. 2 weeks later, Marcus Webb sat in a briefing room at Naval Air Station Oceana, wearing civilian business casual that felt strange after years of either combat fatigues or a janitor's uniform. Around the conference table sat 12 people: squadron commanders, maintenance chiefs, safety officers, and at the head of the table, Commander Kestrel. Her call sign was stenciled on her flight helmet, which rested on the table like a talisman. She'd introduced herself as Natasha Kestrel, her voice steady, her authority unquestioned. She briefed them on Ghost Wing, the code name for the investigation into the sabotage operation. The 3 men Marcus had fought were mid-level enforcers. The real architects were higher up: a defense contractor executive, 2 procurement officers, and a web of corruption that stretched across 3 naval installations. Counterfeit parts had been installed in 47 aircraft. 6 pilots dead, dozens more who'd narrowly survived malfunctions. "Master Chief Webb is our new civilian investigator," Natasha said, and every head turned toward him. "He'll be conducting integrity checks, surprise inspections, and working directly with me to establish new verification protocols. He has full authority to halt any aircraft from flying if he identifies safety concerns." Questions. A grizzled maintenance chief raised his hand. "With respect, Commander, What qualifies a former SEAL to evaluate aviation maintenance? Marcus spoke before Natasha could. Chief, I don't need to understand how an engine works to spot when paperwork doesn't match reality, when signatures are forged, when someone's scared to tell the truth. I spent 20 years reading people in life-or-death situations. That's what this job requires. But I'll be learning from you and your team every day because you're the experts. I'm just here to make sure the system protects you instead of bypassing you. The chief nodded slowly, respect dawning in his eyes. Fair enough, Master Chief. The briefing continued for 2 hours. Afterward, Natasha walked Marcus to the hangar where her squadron kept their aircraft. Rows of FA-18 Super Hornets stood like sleeping predators, their gray-blue camouflage gleaming under industrial lights. Maintenance crews swarmed over them, running diagnostics, checking systems, preparing for the next day's sorties. This is what they tried to destroy, Natasha said quietly. Not just machines, trust. The trust between pilot and crew, between officer and enlisted, between the people who fly and the people who keep them alive. That's what corruption kills first. Marcus studied her profile. She was probably early 30s, her dark hair pulled back in a regulation bun, her jaw still slightly swollen from the attack. She carried herself with the controlled intensity of someone who'd survived not just combat, but betrayal. "Why'd they call you Kestrel?" he asked. She smiled slightly. "In flight school, my instructors said I flew like a Kestrel hunts patient, hovering, watching everything, then striking fast and precise. It stuck. What was your call sign?" "Didn't have one in the teams. We used real names on ops, but the guys called me Bishop sometimes. Because I always thought 3 moves ahead and I protected the pieces that mattered." "Bishop," Natasha repeated. "I like it, suits you." They walked past a Super Hornet with VFA 32 markings. The name painted on the canopy rail read LT Rachel VANCE. A memorial. Natasha stopped, placed her hand on the fuselage. She was 28, Natasha said. From Austin, Texas, she wanted to be an astronaut. She was better than me, better instincts, better hands, just better. And they killed her with a 50-cent counterfeit bolt in the hydraulic system. She fought the aircraft for 90 seconds before it went into an unrecoverable spin. She transmitted the whole time, calm and professional, trying to save it. Her last words were ejection system failure. She wrote it down. Marcus said nothing. There was nothing to say that would matter. "I'm going to find every person involved in this," Natasha continued. "And I'm going to make sure they face justice. Not vengeance, justice. That's why I need you, Bishop. Because I'm too angry to be objective anymore. But you fight clean. You fight for the right reasons." "How do you know that?" Marcus asked. She turned to face him. "Because when you had those 3 men down, you didn't keep hitting. You didn't let rage take over. You stopped the threat and waited for the system. That's discipline. That's honor. That's what we need." Over the next month, Marcus and Natasha worked 18-hour days. They pulled maintenance records, interviewed dozens of personnel, traced supply chains, and identified patterns. Marcus learned the language of aviation hydraulics, avionics, ordnance systems, pre-flight protocols. He learned to read the micro-expressions of people being interviewed, the tells that separated honest mistakes from deliberate deception. He learned which questions made people defensive and which made them eager to help. Natasha taught him everything, patient and methodical. She was exacting but fair, demanding but respectful. She never pulled rank unnecessarily, never dismissed questions, never took shortcuts. Marcus understood why her squadron respected her, not because she was the best pilot, though she probably was, but because she treated everyone like they mattered. They found 8 more corrupted parts before anyone else died. They identified 2 additional contractors involved in the scheme. They built a case that federal prosecutors said was airtight. And slowly, the trust Natasha had spoken about began to rebuild. But Marcus also noticed the cost. Natasha rarely smiled. She worked through lunch, stayed late, arrived early. She flew training sorties with an edge that her squadron mates whispered about aggressive, pushing limits, testing herself against invisible standards. She was becoming harder, sharper, more isolated. One evening, Marcus found her in the hangar after everyone else had left. She was sitting in the cockpit of her aircraft, helmet off, staring at the instruments. He climbed the ladder, knocked on the canopy rail. "You okay, Commander?" She looked at him, and for the first time he saw cracks in her armor. "I keep thinking about Rachel, about what she felt in those last 90 seconds, the terror, the helplessness. And I think about how I'm still here and she's not, and it should have been random, but it wasn't. It was murder, and I can't stop being angry." Marcus climbed into the rear seat, awkward in the confined space. Anger's useful, keeps you sharp, but if you let it become all you are, you'll lose what makes you good at this. You'll stop seeing people and start seeing problems. You'll cross lines you can't uncross. "Is that what happened to you?" Natasha asked. "In the teams?" "Yeah," Marcus admitted. "After my wife died, I was angry at everything, God, the Navy, myself. I couldn't be around people without wanting to hurt something. That's why I quit. Because Lily needed a father, not a weapon, and I needed to remember how to be human." Natasha was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "How do you do it? How do you let go?" "You don't let go," Marcus said. "You carry it, but you decide what it makes you. Rachel's death can make you bitter, or it can make you better. You get to choose. Every day you choose." She nodded slowly, wiping her eyes. "Thank you, Bishop, for being honest, for not giving me platitudes." "Anytime, Kestrel." They sat in the cockpit as night fell outside, two people bound by violence and purpose, learning how to transform pain into something redemptive. Below them, the hangar floor stretched empty and vast. Above them, the canopy framed stars emerging in the darkening sky. Marcus thought about trajectory, how lives curve and intersect, how a mop on a floor could lead to a moment like this, how saving one person could ripple outward in ways impossible to predict. He thought about Lily, asleep at his sister's house tonight, happy and safe. He thought about the pilots who'd never know he'd helped keep them alive. He thought about the long road from warrior to father to something in between. "Come on," Marcus said finally. "Let's get out of here. Tomorrow we've got 3 more contractors to interview, and I want to be sharp." Natasha smiled, a real smile this time, small but genuine. "Roger that, Bishop." They climbed down, locked up the hangar, and walked out into the Virginia night. Behind them, the Super Hornets waited in silent rows, ready for pilots who trusted them, because 2 people refused to let corruption win. It wasn't glory, it wasn't medals or recognition, but it was honest work, and it mattered, and for Marcus Webb that was enough. The fight had changed, but he was still fighting, not with violence now, but with vigilance, not with weapons, but with integrity. And somewhere in the darkness, the sky waited for Kestrel to fly again, clean and true, the way Rachel Vance would have wanted, the way honor demanded, the way heroes did it, not for recognition, but because someone had to stand between the innocent and the dark and say, "Not on my watch, not today, not ever." That promise echoed in Marcus's footsteps as he drove home, as he checked on Lily sleeping peacefully, as he stood at his window looking toward the base where jets would launch at dawn. He'd been a janitor. He'd been a SEAL. He'd been a dozen things. But tonight, he was exactly what he needed to be. A man who showed up, who helped, who didn't quit. And that was the beginning of everything that came after. 6 months passed like pages turning in a book Marcus couldn't put down. The investigation wrapped with conviction, 17 people sentenced, the contracting company dissolved, reforms implemented across the Navy's aviation maintenance program. Admiral Harding herself presented Natasha with a Navy and Marine Corps Commendation Medal for her courage in exposing the conspiracy. Marcus stood in the audience beside Lily, who'd insisted on wearing her fanciest dress, and watched Natasha accept the medal with quiet dignity. But the real change wasn't in medals or headlines. It was in the rebuilding of something intangible, morale. The maintenance crews worked with renewed pride. The pilots trusted their aircraft again. The squadron culture shifted from suspicion to solidarity. And Natasha Kestrel became more than a good pilot. She became a symbol of integrity, someone who'd risked everything for truth and survived. Marcus watched her transform too. The hard edges softened slightly. She laughed more. She joined the squadron for Friday cookouts instead of staying late alone. She started mentoring younger pilots, teaching them not just tactics but values: how to lead, how to question, how to maintain honor in a system that sometimes made it difficult. And she became friends with Lily, which surprised Marcus more than anything. Natasha would stop by their apartment sometimes, still in her flight suit, and Lily would bombard her with questions about flying, about clouds, about whether you could see heaven from 30,000 feet. Natasha answered every question seriously, never condescending, treating Lily's curiosity as important as any admiral's inquiry. "Why do you fly?" Lily asked once, sprawled on the living room floor with crayons and paper. Natasha considered the question carefully. "Because when I'm up there, everything makes sense. The rules are clear. Physics doesn't lie. If you do everything right, if you trust your training and your aircraft, you come home. It's honest work." "Like what my daddy does now," Lily said confidently. "Exactly like what your daddy does," Natasha agreed, meeting Marcus's eyes across the room. But Marcus knew the truth was more complicated. Natasha flew because Rachel couldn't. She flew to honor a memory, to prove that the corruption hadn't won, to reclaim the sky from the people who tried to make it deadly. She flew with purpose that went beyond duty. One afternoon, Marcus and Natasha were conducting a routine inspection at an auxiliary field when they found something wrong. Not catastrophically wrong, but wrong enough: a maintenance log with signatures that didn't match the duty roster, a part serial number that seemed off by a single digit. Small discrepancies that most people would dismiss as clerical errors. Marcus didn't dismiss them. He pulled the maintenance chief aside, asked quiet questions, and within an hour they'd uncovered a smaller version of the same scheme. A lone contractor cutting corners to save time, installing refurbished parts marked as new, falsifying inspection records. No conspiracy this time, just one person's laziness endangering lives. The contractor was escorted off base. The parts were replaced. The aircraft was grounded for complete inspection. And later, standing beside Marcus in the parking lot, Natasha said, "You saved lives today, Bishop. Again." "Just doing the job," Marcus said. "No," Natasha insisted. "Most people would have missed that. Most people would have convinced themselves it was nothing. But you trusted your instincts. That's rare." Marcus shrugged. "In my old life, missing the small things got people killed. Hard to unlearn that." "Don't unlearn it," Natasha said. "We need people like you. People who care about the details, who won't compromise, who understand that there's no such thing as acceptable casualties." They drove back to Oceana in comfortable silence. The sunset painted the sky in violent oranges and purples, the kind of beauty that felt almost aggressive in its intensity. Marcus thought about the strange shape his life had taken, from combat to fatherhood to this hybrid existence where he used warrior skills for peaceful purposes. It wasn't what he'd imagined, but it was good. It was right. That evening, Admiral Harding called Marcus into her office. She was leaving Oceana, promoted to a Pentagon position, and she wanted to speak with him before she departed. "Master Chief," she said, "I've been in the Navy 32 years. I've commanded fleets, managed crises, advised presidents. And I've learned that the people who matter most are rarely the ones with the most rank. They're the ones who show up when it's hard, who do right when it costs them, who protect others without asking what's in it for themselves." She opened a folder on her desk. "I'm recommending you for the Secretary of the Navy's Meritorious Public Service Award. It's the highest recognition we give to civilian employees. You've prevented 17 potential casualties through your investigations. You've restored integrity to a system that was breaking. and you've done it with humility and excellence." Marcus felt uncomfortable with praise. "Ma'am, I appreciate it, but I'm just doing your job," Admiral Harding finished. "I know, that's why you deserve recognition, because you don't do it for recognition." She stood, extended her hand. "I won't be here to see you receive it, but know this. The Navy is better because you're part of it. Commander Kestrel is alive because of you. Dozens of pilots are flying safe aircraft because of you. And your daughter is learning from your example that heroism isn't about glory, it's about showing up." Marcus shook her hand, feeling the weight of her words settle into his bones like ballast. "Thank you, Admiral, for giving me this chance, for seeing past the janitor's uniform." "I didn't see past it," she said. "I saw through it. To the man who wore it with as much honor as he wore a SEAL trident, that man is who we needed." After she left, Marcus sat in his car for a long time, watching pilots and crews move across the base, everyone playing their part in the vast machinery of defense. He thought about purpose and redemption, about how you could lose everything and still find your way back to something meaningful. He thought about the strange providence that had put him in that hangar the night Natasha was attacked, the butterfly effect that had saved lives and changed trajectories. He drove home to Lily, helped her with homework, made dinner, read her a bedtime story about brave knights and clever dragons. And when she was asleep, he stood at her doorway and felt gratitude so intense it was almost painful. This life, ordinary and beautiful and worth protecting, was what he'd fought for all along. Not abstract ideals or geopolitical strategies, but this. A child sleeping safely, a job done honestly, a community held together by people who cared. The next morning, Natasha called. "Bishop, I need a favor, personal, not professional." "Name it," Marcus said. "I'm doing a memorial flight for Rachel, 1 year since the accident. I'm taking her parents up in a T-45, going to fly over the crash site, do a missing man formation with the squadron. It's going to be hard, and I'd like you there. On the ground, I mean, someone who understands." "I'll be there," Marcus said without hesitation. The memorial flight happened on a cold November morning, the sky gray and heavy with unshed rain. Rachel's parents stood on the tarmac, a quiet couple in their 50s, wearing photos of their daughter pinned to their jackets. The squadron formed up in four-ship formation, Natasha leading, and as they flew overhead, one aircraft broke away and climbed vertically into the clouds, leaving a gap in the formation. The missing man, the empty space where a warrior should be. Marcus stood beside Rachel's father, who wept silently, shoulders shaking. Marcus put a hand on the man's shoulder, saying nothing, because some grief was too enormous for words. Above them, the aircraft traced contrails across the gray canvas of sky, writing farewell in vapor and thunder. When Natasha landed, she removed her helmet and walked directly to Rachel's parents. She hugged them both, whispered things Marcus couldn't hear, and the three of them stood together in shared grief. Then she turned to Marcus, her eyes red but her bearing still strong. "Thank you for being here," she said. "Always," Marcus replied. That night he told Lily about the memorial, about how the Navy honors its fallen, about the importance of remembering people who gave everything. Lily listened seriously, then asked, "Daddy, when you die, will people remember you like that?" Marcus pulled her close. "I don't know, baby, but I hope I live in a way that makes me worth remembering. That's all anyone can do." "You are," Lily said with absolute certainty. "You're the best daddy and the best hero." Marcus held her until she fell asleep, thinking about legacy and love, about the different ways people fight for what matters. He'd been a warrior once. Now he was something else: protector, investigator, father, friend. The fight had changed shape, but it continued. And he was winning it one day at a time, one honest act at a time, one moment of showing up when it mattered. Outside, the Virginia night was dark and quiet. Inside, a 7-year-old girl dreamed safely. And somewhere in the space between those two truths, Marcus Webb found peace with the man he'd become, the choices he'd made, and the life he was building from the wreckage of what he'd lost. It was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything. The award ceremony happened in spring, when the cherry blossoms bloomed around Washington and the world felt renewed. Marcus wore a suit that felt like a costume, standing in a Pentagon conference room while a deputy secretary of the Navy read his citation. Lily sat in the front row beside Natasha, who'd taken leave specifically to attend. The medal was bronze and heavy, suspended from a ribbon, and when they pinned it to his lapel, Marcus thought about all the people who'd made this moment possible. His wife, who'd taught him about sacrifice. Lily, who'd given him purpose. Natasha, who'd trusted him. Admiral Harding, who'd seen his potential. But mostly he thought about the pilots flying safely because of work done quietly, without recognition, in hangars and offices far from headlines. That was the real award: lives saved, trust restored, integrity maintained. The medal was just metal. The work was what mattered. Afterward, Natasha took them to lunch at a small cafe near the Capitol. Lily ordered chocolate chip pancakes and told everyone at nearby tables about her dad's medal, until Marcus gently reminded her that some heroes preferred quiet. Natasha laughed, and the sound was lighter than Marcus had ever heard it. "She's right, though," Natasha said. "You are a hero, Bishop. Not because of what you did in the teams, and not even because you saved me. Because you show up every single day and do the hard, boring, essential work of keeping people safe. That's the truest heroism there is." Marcus felt uncomfortable. "You'd have done the same. You did do the same. You blew the whistle knowing it might end your career. And you fought 3 men knowing it might land you in jail," Natasha countered. "We're both stubborn idiots who can't walk away from what's right. That's why we work well together." Lily giggled into her pancakes. "You're funny, Miss Natasha." "And you're brilliant, Miss Lily," Natasha replied. "Your dad tells me you want to be an astronaut." "Or a pilot," Lily said. "Or maybe someone who makes sure pilots are safe like Daddy." Marcus and Natasha exchanged glances, both recognizing the gift of a child who'd learned that heroism came in many forms, that you didn't need to fly jets or carry weapons to make a difference. You just needed to care, to show up, to do the work. On the drive back to Virginia, Lily fell asleep in the backseat and Natasha said, "I got news this week. I'm being promoted to commander and given my own squadron. VFA 32. The Swordsman, Rachel's old squadron." Marcus felt pride surge through him. "That's incredible, Natasha. You've earned it." "Maybe," she said, "but it's also terrifying. I'll be responsible for 20 pilots, 200 enlisted personnel, dozens of aircraft. Every decision I make could save lives or end them. That weight, I don't know if I'm ready." "Nobody's ever ready," Marcus said. "But you're capable, you're ethical, and you understand that leadership isn't about being perfect. It's about caring more about your people than yourself. You'll do great." She was quiet for a moment. "Will you stay on as my primary investigator? I can request you specifically. I trust you, Bishop. I need people I trust." Marcus looked at Lily in the rearview mirror, peaceful and safe. He thought about the work ahead, the responsibility, the ongoing fight to protect warriors from corruption and incompetence. He thought about Rachel.